Hello, and thank you for watching the Angry Rooster Creations channel. Today I thought I'd have a little bit of fun and another fountain pen video. This is a Jinhao 992. I bought these pens a few years ago, and a 6-pack. And today I thought I would have a little bit of fun with this pen and experiment with converting this one into an eyedropper. Now, from what I understand, this pen is rebranded and sold at a much higher price sometimes as a pen called the Monteverde USA Monza pen. And on some places I've seen that one listed, it lists it as being eyedropper ready. But on this 992, it is an injection molded barrel that has a hole, which would have been, I guess, a sprue hole or an artifact of the injection mold process, and that barrel is plugged with this little knob, this little, I don't know if you can see that too well, it's this little pressed in kind of finial knob. And it appears that that's just a mechanical joint there. It's just a little plug that's pressed into the end of that hole, which leads one to believe that that probably would leak if you decided to turn this into an eyedropper. Now the pen itself has a little silicone O-ring here. Presumably that little silicone O-ring is there to help tighten up the barrel and prevent it from loosening and unscrewing itself and carry. But that could also help lead to sealing the pen off if one were to eyedropper this, and as a little extra insurance you could put some silicone grease there. And it would have a quite large ink capacity if this was converted into an eyedropper. It's just that, well, you've got that plug to deal with. So today, in this video, what I'm going to do is I had this, what is supposed to be a clear casting resin. This is some resin that I'd bought a while ago to do some experimenting. I only did a little bit and found out that it didn't quite work for what I intended to use it for. I was trying to do a colored inlay in a wood project I was doing, and found out after I began said project that what I really needed was acrylic casting resin, not clear epoxy. But as you can see, this has been sitting around and the hardener itself has ambered considerably. So it's probably not going to be clear anymore, but being as how this is a liquid casting resin that flows pretty easy, I figured mixing up a little bit and pouring it down into this barrel here to seal that off would be easier than trying to use a thicker, more viscous 5-minute epoxy. So I'm going to set things up real quick. I'm going to mix a little bit of this, pour it into this pen, and I'm going to show that. And then when it's done, we're going to, now I have to wait 72 hours for this to cure. Of course, it won't be 72 hours in the video. But once it does that, I'll come back here and I will grease up the threads on the section, pour some ink off in this barrel, and we're going to see how it works out. Alright, so here we are back again with me about to do the resin. Now, main reason I'm wearing these gloves, not because I'm necessarily scared of the resin, it's just that since I'm dealing with lights and a camera, I don't want to get epoxy resin on my fingers and then get it on the camera and the lights and everything, so just in case, I can take the gloves off and not make a sticky mess everywhere. I took this little piece of foam here. This was, I don't know what exactly this came from. It was some kind of a piece of packaging from something. I usually keep blocks of foam like this around because you never know when you might need them for something, and here's a reason I need it. I took a knife, punched a hole in this so that I can hold this pen vertical, this barrel, vertical like this while that resin cures, because this does have a pretty long open time and it is liquid. If you just drop it in there and, leave it for a few minutes and then it tips over, it's a good chance the resin could actually just run right out of this. So, anyways, I'm going to mix up just a dab of that resin in this little piece of cardboard, come off of, just a tab off a box. I'm going to use that fold to hopefully guide that resin pretty easily, sort of funnel it and pour it down into the barrel. So anyways, let's get on with it. Now, if I do this correctly, should be able to pour this down inside the barrel and keep it off the threads. Otherwise I'm going to make a bit of a mess. Alright, there's a bit of it dropped down in there. Some of it has stuck to the sides of the barrel, but it is still fairly liquid and it's making its way down there. Not necessarily ideal. Well, that's why this is an experiment. Thankfully, it looks like all of the resin that I dropped in missed the threads. So that is a good thing. I'm going to try to coax this down. Oh, coax that down in there, but I don't think I really necessarily have to, because it looks to me like it has already filled up the bottom of the pen there. So that's nice. I'm going to take a cotton swab real quick, go grab one, and I'm going to attempt to clean up some of the excess in the barrel, because I've got more than enough in there for sealing that off. Here's going to be my cleanup swab. I'm going to just quickly go around the threads. Yeah, I didn't get anything on the threads. And we're going to... Now, presumably any kind of a liquid glue would work on this. This is not going to look the greatest. Part of that barrel is not going to be so clear because it looks like some of that resin is still going to stay on there. And I'm pretty sure I did get a little bit too much resin down in there. But you know, these are... It's a cheap enough pen, and I've got more of these that I'll risk a little bit of cosmetic damage for what it is, just for this experiment. So that's pretty much got that. I'm going to set this guy aside and let it dry out and all. And like I said, the next time you see me on camera, it'll be, you know, 72 hours removed from now. And then we'll do the fill up and writing test. Alright, so it's been several days. My epoxy has set up down in that barrel, and I'm going to proceed to grease these threads just as a little extra insurance for this attempt at eyedroppering this pen. Just a little bit of silicone grease there. That should help seal those threads up a little bit more, on top of the fact that there is a I'm going to be just a little bit more generous than that. Can't be too careful when you're eyedroppering a pen. So I really do not want to have this thing leak. Alright. So there's my silicone grease insurance policy, so to speak. And now I'm gonna take a ink syringe here, and I'm gonna be putting in this is, let's see, what is this? Pilot Iroshizuku Momiji. I got one of the random ink sample things on an order I had in the past from Goulet Pens, and this is one of the random ink samples that they sent me. I have a feeling that this is... No, I just have a feeling. I know this is not going to fill up this pen because it's 2 milliliters of ink, and I'm going to guess that this is probably about 3 milliliters that this barrel can hold. So here we go. And yep. That did not fully fill that. I knew it wouldn't. Because when I bought my Heart of Darkness ink, it came with a Charlie pen and that has a smaller barrel than this, and the Noodler's Charlie pen holds a little over 2 milliliters of ink. Because I've also used it, filled it up with from one of these ink sample bottles. So there is my eyedroppered 992 pen. Because this is being eyedroppered, I'm going to have to wait a few minutes for the ink to actually flow itself through the feed to where I can write with this. So I'll stop the video again and we'll be back in a minute when it's ready to write with. Alright, so here we are back. As you can see, we are inked up in there. Now that was a 2 mil ink sample. Like I said, this was a random Goulet pen sample. It was 2 mils of ink. Based on how this flows, I have a feeling this barrel, as it is, might hold just shy of 4 mils of ink. I don't think it'll hold a 4 full mils, but it's certainly over 3.5 mils of ink. In comparison to something like here's one of the sort of Noodler's Charlie pens. If you've ever bought a 4.5 ounce bottle of ink, you get these for free. They just come with the 4.5 ounce bottles, and I think these hold around 2.5 mils. So, I mean, that's a pretty healthy ink capacity. But we're gonna see. And this is just the extra fine Jinhao nib, so it's gonna pretty much write like it. But I have left this to actually flow the ink through the feed. So let's see, what is this? See if I can spell this right. So, I mean, there it is. Seems to be flowing pretty good. I mean, the actual writing and flow and all is more to do with the actual feed than anything else. But, I mean, it seems to work just fine like this as an eyedropper. I don't really see any real evidence. It looks like some ink may have penetrated. I don't know if you could tell. It's hard to see, probably on camera. But right there, ink may have gotten into the first thread, just barely into the first thread. But it doesn't actually look like the ink's getting past the threads or past the grease, let alone getting all the way to the actual O-ring there. So it appears this is would be a pretty viable option. Not necessarily that I would suggest using the same resin that I did. It's just what I had on hand. A normal 5-minute epoxy would work just great. And then honestly, any other kind of glue that sets up decently hard that you can get down in there. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say to go out and buy 992s with the idea that you're going to, glue that little finial plug and convert this to an eyedropper. There's plenty of other pens out there that are that are pretty inexpensive, that are really more readily and easily converted than this, but since I had this one on hand, I decided I would just play around and do it. And do note that, once again, like I kind of said before, these pens have been known, according to other people, to potentially be a little bit more fracture prone, and like I said, that generally seems to be kind of a consensus with the highly transparent injection molded pens, that the plastic material is harder and therefore more brittle, so they could be more prone to cracking. So whether or not you would want to convert a pen like this and actually carry it, I guess that depends on how you're carrying it. You want to protect it from any kind of shock. I definitely would not want to drop this pen, and make sure that you're not like just throwing it willy-nilly in a bag where you're throwing heavy objects around that could potentially crush this. But all in all, it works. It works fine. I pretty much figured it would. Now I will say this: most people that are watching this are probably already familiar, I would say, with what an eyedropper is. But in case, or having some level of experience possibly with an eyedropper, but if you don't, one of the things you got to be aware of when using an eyedropper pen is that, as like this pen's about half full. As this air volume grows in the back here, in relative to the amount of ink that's in the barrel, as you're writing with it, the heat from your hand can actually warm the barrel and cause the air to expand, which can push ink out while you're writing, and that's what's referred to as burping. I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of writing so far, obviously, but having written with, like I said, this little Noodler's Charlie pen and others like it, I have experienced burping before. That's just kind of something that goes with the realm of an eyedropper. Now, there are certain dedicated eyedropper pens that are built to be eyedroppers, that are made from turned acrylic, where the wall thickness on the barrel is much thicker than like the thin injection molded plastic here. And I think those pens that have those more substantially thick barrels are less prone to that heat transfer from your hand and burping. Now, I would also say that with this pen in particular, when I post it, where it actually contacts my hand is where the cap is posted, and the wall of this cap is not necessarily actually touching the pen barrel there because of the taper of the pen barrel. So perhaps if you're writing with this posted, that could be a little bit of an insulating air gap that could potentially make it less prone to burping with this particular pen. I don't know. I would have to sit here and write with it for a very long time. But, as this was just kind of a simple, how-to/hack video, whatever you want to call it. Obviously this isn't a long-term review of an eyedropper Jinhao 992. But yeah, there it is. It's worked. It works. It's a viable thing. It's not that hard to do. So if you maybe were like me and at some point you bought a 6-pack of Jinhao 992s and you got other pens and you got some of these kind of just like collecting dust, and you're like, maybe I should do something with one of those, it's a viable thing. It can work. So anyways, thank you for watching. If you watched this long, I really appreciate it. If you got anything out of it, thought it was a useful video, anything informative, or just enjoyed watching, I really appreciate a like down there. It really helps me out. And if you got any kind of questions, any suggestions, anything that you want to add, any criticisms, drop them down there in the comment section. That also helps out. Any kind of engagement's good. And, if you've watched this video and some other videos, it really helped me out. If you like what you see, if you went ahead and subscribed. But, like I said, I thank you for watching again, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.